after you've completed your rocket research, what we want to do is create thumbnail sketches. So I get a piece of graph paper or lined notebook paper, something to that effect. I'm going to fold it in half once, and I'm going to go ahead and fold it in half again. And then I'll fold it in half one more time. So in the end, when I open this up, I should have 8 rectangles. The reason why I do this is so we can space out our thumbnail sketches, so that it makes it a little bit easier for design and also to look at it in the end. This is what I'm expecting that everybody will do. You could hold your paper like this, but our rocket tends to be taller than it is wide. So we're going to hold our paper horizontal when you're doing your thumbnail sketches. We're actually going to create 8 versions of the same thing. So 8 rockets with just differences in the fin shape, the rocket length, the nose cone. So 8 different rockets, but hopefully in the end, one of the rockets is going to be the one based off your research that you're going to go with and select. So when I start my sketch, I like to start with my nose cone and kind of come down and see what the shape of the overall body of the rocket's going to look like. And I know at the bottom there's that little nozzle, so I like to draw that in so I know which side's the bottom, which side's the top. I'm also going to draw in my fin shape. And in most cases, we're either going to have 2 fins or 3 fins, 4 fins or 3 fins. So this one has 2 here, and then it's going to end up having 1 here. Notice that I draw a little rectangle to represent the size of that fin. The other one's on the other side. We're not going to be able to see it. So make sure that when you draw this rectangle, it's the same height as your other fins. I don't recommend adding fins up top here. Usually the fins down the bottom is enough. So 3 or 4 fins should do the job. All right, so there's one design. You know what? This looks a little short for me, so I actually want to draw something similar, but I think it should be taller. I think I'm going to make my rocket actually a little bit taller. So we can see we're about 2 blocks taller. And then I can have the bottom and show where that little nozzle is. And my fin shape is actually going to be the same, right? So I only changed the height of this one. And the reason why we're doing thumbnail sketches is because I'm trying to get that proportion, that size, what I'm looking for, get a lot of ideas down on paper. So I actually like the length of that a good bit more. All right. Maybe the fin's not exactly what I want. Maybe the nose cone isn't exactly what I want, but I figured out that the length is what I'm looking for. Based off of my research, I figured out that I'd rather have more of a rounded nose cone than a pointy one. So I'm going to draw that in. And the fins maybe it's a little bit too big for me. So I'm going to change the size and shape of the fin, see if I like that a little bit more. A little bit long on this side. And I'm kind of steering more towards this shape. Something between those two is probably what I'll go with. But I'm going to continue to modify and adjust that. A couple of things you want to avoid. Your nose cone should not be flat on the top, right? That's not very hydro or aerodynamic. So we have to make sure that as we're cutting through the air, it works out really well. The other thing we have to avoid is a lot of people will do a nice nose cone. The length of the rocket will be fine. And then they end up doing something like this for their fins. Some sort of ginormous fin that's not going to work. It's going to be too heavy and it's not going to benefit us. Or they go on the opposite end, they make them too small. The other thing we need to worry about is how much is attached to the rocket. So if I'm making a fin, I can't have a really tiny piece attached to the rocket and then go with this really giant fin. That little section right there is not going to be strong enough to hold on. So if I wanted to do a shape like this, I'd have to increase the size of that touches the rocket here. Okay. You can extend below the rocket, just has to be free in this area right here where we're going to attach it to our launch pad. Okay. So if I was going to go with a fin like this, you'd end up seeing a rectangle that went like that because it hangs down, it's the same height. And then I ended up seeing the same thing over here. And again, we need to have a large enough section that can touch that. What we found out though is based off of the templates, the example templates for the fins, somewhere between 3 and 5 inches in height is probably going to be good for the length of the fin. and probably somewhere between 2 and 4 inches wide. So 3 to 5 this way, 2 to 4 this way is going to be good enough for what we're looking for ours. All right, so once you go through and you sketch at least 8, we do have a back here if you need to. You can go onto the back. Star the one that you like the most. Come to me, get your seal of approval. I will sign you off and say you're good to go for the next step. All right. Our next step is our plans to scale.